Does heavy mechanical crunch enhance your immersion? Does a 2-hour shopping trip for loot eventually kill your session's momentum? Does every campaign have to end with a set-piece combat session with the BBEG? Welcome to our Heroic Roundtable, a side quest of our actual, where we step away from our actual play campaign into the guts and gears of TTRPGs. Stick around as we talk about crunch, loot, combat, and living consequences of a long play campaign. I am Zach with the Heroic Round, joined by
John
and Chad
and Brandon.
That's going to sound neat.
Brandon.
Making my own. These are mechanical sound effects.
Well, a part of this roundtable, as we talked about, is we're going to talk about crunch, loot, combat, and living consequences.
do it.
I think when we hear the word crunch, we automatically all think about
Raisin Bran.
Raisin Bran Crunch, Crunch bars. But
3.5.
when we're talking about TTRPG Crunch, what is that?
Rules heavy.
What does that mean?
Something Brandon
What's the weather
loves.
outside? Let's roll it on a table.
Roll on a table.
Mm-hmm.
How do we do this? What's the mechanic in combat for grappling, trying to disarm someone while grappling, casting into a grapple? Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
How do I attack 5 times in a round?
With all those, is crunch actually fun? Is that something that you enjoy, Brandon?
Yes.
Why?
Caveat, if you enjoy spreadsheets, you will enjoy crunch.
Yeah.
Good call.
So what I like about a crunchy system is that there are rules that spell out all of the specific benefits of trying different scenarios or situations. So all of the modifiers and having to go deep into the rules. I really enjoy that part of it because for example, in 5th edition or in 5.5 for D&D, it took a big chunk of that away and it's just advantage or disadvantage, right? So the problem with that is some advantages are bigger than other advantages. So how do you really know? And if your advantages, and of course that can be to the DM's discretion, but it's nice for the player to have a little bit of control over to make a case of why they think these things could apply. And when there's a rule set that helps outline that, I enjoy that.
You
part.
feel like it helps balance things and keep it fair?
In theory, yeah, it could. Yeah, where it does leave a little more to you can try to play into those situations more often or set yourself up to have those situations or those advantages. But that's combat crunch, right? I think also I really like the in-depth character creation pieces of crunchy systems.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so in even Palladium's games like Heroes Unlimited or Rifts.
Where they have damage, mega damage, bunch of different tables.
Yeah, those kind of things are a lot of fun because it's your menu items in games, right? It's just getting into it and the lore. And yeah, you may never use things in your actual character, but it's fun to get down to the nitty gritty. But yeah.
You saying that makes me think of tech trees in leveling up in a video
Right.
game. When you can I'm going to specialize in this. I'm going to spend my points here and grow this path versus just I leveled up and now I'm stronger. Right. I think that's cool.
So one thing you said about some advantages are bigger than other advantages made me think of, and I don't know this, but could you do super advantage, super duper advantage, where you roll 3 dice and choose the highest or 4 dice and choose the highest? I feel like you could just keep going on that in a never ending way.
Well,
It's interesting.
It's a good question because do you feel that if you have a game that's very crunchy, does it take away from the role-playing aspect of it? Where, yeah, you can role-play your hearts out, but if it's a very crunchy game, is it going to matter when you're faced with tables, interlocking rules,
depends
stuff
on
like
the
that?
DM.
Why do you
I
say
think
that?
it depends on
And
the
the
DM.
players.
Yeah.
Well, I think it'll depend on the DM just from my vantage, because if you are a badass role player who is putting your heart out there and trying a voice or trying to interact with me in character, first person, not trying to hide from being at the table, then I automatically am going to be trying to help you succeed more. That's just me. So we have examples of this. We've already talked about it in previous roundtables where somebody should have failed a roll. John's character probably should have failed 2 different times, one with an intimidation and another one with an Inspire, where he was like trying to get followers.
Yeah.
And I had him succeed both times with a complication instead of just saying, oh, well, the crunch of this.
And now Lola's in love with me.
Yeah. So now the crunch of this, is not the limiter. It's like, oh, well, I'm still saying you can succeed because you're a good role player,
And we do see a lot of people complain about role playing interfering with the roles, right? Because if you're at a table and someone's timid and they're not really going to be vocalized or role playing, then they're going to really count on their roles to do the heavy lifting for them.
Well, and I want to be careful. Actually, I'm glad you bring that up because I do get this, hear this a lot, which is like, well, that isn't fair to people who aren't good role players.
Yeah.
I want to define what I mean by that. A good role player is just effort. That's all I'm looking for. Like if you are out there stuttering and not saying the inspire thing and the right thing, and you're not a good actor, I don't care. It's like I want to see that you're putting energy into the effort, like you're actually showing up to play. Oh, there's an open-heartedness to it, right? And so for me, I think that that's where I get to be judge, Judy, and executioner, which is to actually to actually look at somebody who's at the table and evaluate effort. That's really what I'm evaluating. Are you adding energy to the session? Are you showing up to play? Is there an open-heartedness to you? That's what I'm saying is better than any dice roll that you're doing. And that's when I give the push of like, okay, you're going to succeed with a complication. I don't see it as effort if somebody is like, okay, I intimidate the guy and I roll,
20.
It's like, okay, well, how do you intimidate him? Well, I threaten him. Well, what do you say to him? Like it's my job as the DM to try to like create an environment where I can coach it out. And they're like, well, I say, give me the thing or I'm going to punch you in the face. I'm like, okay, now we're getting there, right? Like we're starting to role play. So anyway, I think it's easy to just, hear me say, well, good role play automatically wins, you'll automatically succeed even if there's a bad roll. It's like there is a level of like judgment and subjectivity there, but there also is, I'm talking about energy mechanics at the table.
Yeah.
Well, and I think there are purists that would be like, you have to respect the die always.
Sure.
If it's a bad roll, it's a bad roll. You don't succeed, right?
Sure.
Like, what's the point of rolling if you're just going to not pay attention to it?
Well, and that's why I think that it's with a complication.
Yeah.
Like when you inspired, the dwarves, that dwarven hall, rather than creating an army of people that are excited to go and fight the Manticore, you got one.
Got one.
And she's cute and sweet and she's a little infatuated with you, right? It's like a totally different outcome than if you had rolled a 20 and like rallied the Dwarven Brotherhood and they're like, man, he's kind of like, he should be our ruler, like we should be following him into battle. So it's like you still succeed, but you have a little complication. And I think that's where it's still important to me to let the dice speak because the dice are the third author.
Yeah.
You guys are an author. I'm an author. The dice are the third author. And when you silence the dice, you actually are just at the point of like, okay, well, what are we doing with the dice anyway?
But if you are also silencing the players and being like, no, roleplay doesn't matter. It's purely the dice. You're silencing an author.
That's
there
a
too,
great
right?
point.
So
that is
it's a balance.
Great point. It is a balance, and I will admit that I've not always done that balance well. And times I'll make decisions. I'll go like, I shouldn't have done that. We had a situation in a recent combat where we redid a part of a combat, and it was because I gave the dice full authorship rather than having a connection between me and the dice and you, right?
Yeah.
When I just said whatever the dice say is going to happen, the outcome actually wasn't what I think was right for the story and for the payoff for you guys or for the payoff for our listeners, right? And so it's an interesting dichotomy of being able to say like, wait, hold on, let's try that again and make sure that we're respecting everybody,
Yeah, I going back to like the crunchy part of that, I do think the dice are the ones that tell the story. Right. Like that determines the outcome. We set up the situations and then the dice are the ones that tell. So like, I know that you're not saying this explicitly, but like if you fail and fall to your death, that's not going to change because you role played it well, right? It's that some outcomes or like the sliding scale that is what we lovingly refer to as DM's discretion. That's really where like the level of success or failure can have that kind of squishiness. But I like the crunchy part because I do think the more that a player can bring to the table and be like, this part without being like argumentative in a way that's like, no, this clearly would like be a physics, like impossible in physics, so it'd have to be something like this, right? That's where it, like the crunchiness can get too much.
Yeah.
But I also think that's actually more of a metagaming issue where people are bringing in outside world information.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And like I a lot of times when I like talk with new players, like use a skill check example or a DC of climbing, and it's like, okay, yeah, you can roll a natural 20 to climb a wall, but if it's a glass wall and there's literally no way to do it without magic, you still can't climb the wall, right? There's no holds. It
So
does.
Spider-Man magic.
Yeah, that would be magic. It's called spider walk.
Okay.
Or climb, spider climb.
Okay.
But,
Got him.
but yeah, so like there are limits to some of those things, but yeah, finding like the more crunchy a system is, like the better you can understand it as a player. And honestly, I would say a lot of the crunch fun comes outside of the table when you're like reading on your own or whatever, and like maybe in forums or something like that. That to me is where it's like you're talking and you're nerding out about how this combination could work or how you can use these things together. I like that part of it.
Well, it's so funny you bring that up. I think there's another topic there that maybe is a question for another time, which is this idea of an automatic 20 isn't an automatic success.
Yeah.
Which is what you just talked about. And I think that to not just get slaughtered here, I would say that as a DM, I shouldn't be having you roll a dice if there's not a possibility of success. So that's the first thing. So if it was a glass wall and you say, I want to roll to climb it, I could be like, hey, you can't climb this wall.
Yeah.
So don't roll at all. But the thing I wanted to come back to is what you just said about crunchiness. For me, the reason I like, because Chad is not like a crunchy, I'm not like a
No,
crunchy
you're
DM.
definitely the least crunchy
I'm not,
out of anybody in the room.
Out of the room, I'm probably the least crunchy. I'm pretty flexible. The reason I like crunchy systems, I think there's a status element. Meaning, I feel status by playing a crunchy system.
Yep.
I feel cool when I play a more crunchy system. It's the connecting with people on little rules inside, you know what I mean? Like understanding all of that and being in on it and being like, oh yeah, I don't play the simpler, new, dumbed down versions of D&D.
Right.
I play 3.5 or I play Pathfinder, which is way more crunchy. It's for me, it's a status thing. And I just have realized that in this conversation right now.
I think that's one of the reasons why crunchy systems struggle, is because there is a greater barrier to entry, right?
Sure.
100%.
If I want to play it and it's not super accessible and I feel like I have to read this fat tome before I can actually like understand the game. And we've all tried to play with like our wives and with other people, and there's a huge learning curve with these crunchy systems.
True.
And having done a one shot with 5th edition, we were all kind of like, oh wow, this would actually work really well for like the
newer
greater
players,
group playing with our wives and stuff. Like,
It's a great point.
and so I think that's a huge downside to crunchy systems.
I think with crunch, and I think we're getting really, there's a lot of good here for this. So other topics we want to jump into, and if you have anything else you want to add, I will just add to what John just said. I think crunch allows for more competence, because I think someone picking up a tome and reading through all of the Pathfinder 1st edition or 3.5 player handbook, you're never going to learn that. And I think it does require a little bit more understanding of having somebody in your group who's a key central point of the rules, Brandon, who's able to guide and coach people.
True.
So if you're not really sure how to be crunchy, but if you're interested in doing that, read it, learn it, and become the master.
Good point.
And then coach people. When I started to play with a bunch of my in-laws,
yeah.
I didn't have them pick skills. I did not have them pick feats. When they started creating their character, I said, hey, you're going to get feats at level 5. And then we just started playing because I was helping people create their characters. So cool. I think there is this aspect, we can explore at a different time, but there is a level of comfort that comes from this competency when you understand crunch.
So the takeaway, if you're going to play a crunchy system, put a rules lawyer at your table on retainer.
That's right.
Yeah, I think getting that in, being ready to litigate, or just having someone who wants to act as that central point of truth. You know, I feel good when I can know the rules and help people learn.
Go become the expert and then correct everybody, especially your dungeon master.
Right. He loves it.
He loves that.
Anybody else around crunch? Everybody want to get some?
My favorite cereals are
Honey
crunchy.
Nut Crunch.
So.
That's true.
Yeah. I would shout out though that there's one end of the scale is not better than the other, right? It's personal preference, because like
sure,
a lot of like So if it's not a crunchy system, like the newer D&D or even like Mothership or Kids on Bikes, things that are a lot simpler, they are still a ton of fun.
Yeah, agreed.
Super fun.
It's
True.
just, it comes down to personal preference. What do you want to spend? Do you want to spend hours outside of the game talking about how the mechanics work? Great. That might be
We're
something
buying we have like 35 3.5 books or something.
I have like
Yeah, we
30
have so
something.
much.
Yeah, I have almost the whole set. There's
Yeah.
1 or 2 that I'm missing.
Yeah, it's interesting though. Like now I'm sitting here contemplating what I said about status. Like there's an element of feeling like
Gatekeeping.
Dungeons. Well, yeah, like Dungeons and Dragons felt like it was ours.
Yeah.
Second edition, we had to fight so hard to be able to play. The older brothers wouldn't let us play. We had to go buy our own books.
Yep.
Beg my mom
Took
to
us
buy the books.
2 or 3 weeks to get
and we
dice.
had to sit and read them because they wouldn't teach us how to play either. So we had to sit and read them to try to figure it out. We finally did. Anyway, long story is I'm saying that as Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing games in general have become more mainstream, I can see in myself there's been more of a pull to like, I want to be in a hipster corner of the RPG.
Hipster Thaco corner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to be in more of like an elite corner that is like, oh yeah, you guys are cute playing this game that is like a dumbed, watered down version of my game. You know, like I can see the ego of that and like the desire to do that.
But you did love playing 5e when we did our Christmas run.
And
shot.
that's the thing is, I'm
And
saying I
you
think
love to
this is
share
me.
this game.
This is me more like just recognizing that in myself and seeing like, oh, I can see that that's one of the pulls to me to be like, oh, we should play Pathfinder instead of 5th edition. When in reality, I probably would have more fun DMing 5th edition.
True.
You probably would.
It's more my style.
Yeah, it
right.
totally
So I
is.
think I would have way more fun at it, and you guys might have more fun because you're like, well, Chad is now paying attention to the rules. The rules are more at Chad's level. You know what I mean? So I think that there's an element there where I'm just like, I kind of need to own that, but that's what's coming up.
There's
Yeah.
no more takeaways on the drive home of like, yeah, that was bullshit. That shouldn't have happened.
That's
Yeah.
right.
I think there's a lot of other. Go ahead, Brandon.
I was going to say, that's some good self-awareness.
That's just me just recognizing
Being
what's
honest.
going
And I think
on.
like,
Yeah.
and I'm not trying to gatekeep, but I will say that if you're looking to make a tabletop RPGs a part of a lifelong hobby,
Sure.
my recommendation is go to Crunchy. Like dive into AD&D first, 3.5. If you have the time to put it in, and I'll get to this. I see your face, because it's easier to go from Crunchy into more freeform games than it is to go freeform games into more Crunchy games. But we don't need to necessarily get into
That's
that.
like saying like if you're gonna do winter sports, you should do backcountry snowboarding.
You should.
Yeah, I think it's
Hop on
a.
the luge first.
I think the most important part for new players is to have fun, right? Like, and for people, and we all have experienced this when people are sitting at the table and they have to turn and be like, okay, what do I do? Like, I don't even know. Like, people are gonna come in and be
When
like,
you
I
shout
don't.
at them.
Yeah, I don't even know what dice to roll. Right?
You know
If
what I
you're-
say to them? I say, what do you think you should do? And then they're going to try, and then I'm going to coach them, and then they're going to figure it out. I think there's this fear that if we approach Crunch and you're afraid of it, but I'm saying to someone who's wanting to jump into the deep end and wanting to do this, I think going super crunchy with a 3.5 or Pathfinder First Edition is a great approach.
Yeah. Okay. For the clarifier of
Yeah,
like
yeah,
somebody that's looking for that super deep end.
Correct.
But yeah, I would rather have somebody have a good time and not like have to ask, okay, what dice do I roll, instead of like, okay, what dice do I roll? Okay, but now you have to add +2 for this. Plus, you're flat-footed, so you have to mind it. Like the more they can focus on the story and like character and like their own character development and things like that, that I think is going to make somebody want to play more.
Yeah.
Or rather, not make somebody want to play, but help them be part of the magic that is like TTRPGs, right?
Yeah, and I think
So-
we're coming at it from
Yeah.
different angles because
For
Crunch is something that you can talk about, and the reason that I bring it up is very much, I think with we've kind of talked about this with Daggerheart getting released, that was kind of not very crunchy, more role play focused. There is kind of this neo crunch movement that's kind of happening in the space where people are now, we're 25 years past 3.5, past Pathfinder.
Shit, we're old.
Holy
Yeah.
crap, dude.
And I think people want to rediscover that. And it's kind of these conversations where I think in general, outside of the old school renaissance of TTRPGs and kind of this new free form, whether it's Daggerheart, whether it's Fate, Kids on Bike, Mothership, there is a little bit of a resurgence to that neo crunch.
Mhm.
And I think one aspect that's always interesting with crunch when it comes down to loot. because I think when you look at loot, there's a lot of games like Fate. If you play Fate, loot doesn't really affect anything that you do. You're not going to get some, you're not going to like, there could be a possibility of having it change the way your character interacts, but like when you're creating a character, you're not going through and being like picking and choosing all these little things. So like when you're looking at how loot plays into the game when it comes to crunch or non-crunch, that's another huge aspect, because it's almost like you have crunch, but then even in D&D, you have groups that are super focused in loot, where they just want to dungeon dive and they want to get this loot. They want to find all the gold, all the magic items. Or even you have groups that are just like, yeah, we'll find loot. And you have a DM who's giving out tons of cool stuff, but no one's using it. So do you think there's a moment? Do you think there's a moment where loot or treasure becomes too much of a focus or not enough focus?
So that's a good question, but what about parties that don't have a bard? And there's no need for them to have a loot.
Oh, God.
I saw
that twinkle in your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think for our group, I think we have 2 people who love loot and treasure and shopping. And we have 1 person who
is a
could
bitch.
take it or leave it. Because I guess that's my question. Like, when does do you ever see a problem where loot and shopping at shops becomes too much for a session?
When you're presenting it in a story format like ours, absolutely.
Yeah.
However, I will say the rewards of a TTRPG are experience and loot. And to discount one entirely focuses on the other too much, too heavily. And then we just end up just like, it's like, okay, would you prefer combat, a little bit of role and no role play? And it's like, no, you want a balance. And I think I want a balance of experience and a balance of loot. I think Chad has a pretty ingenious way of doing loot where he's got his prepared lists. And I think he has specific items pulled in there that aid the story. Where I've struggled with that, and why I think in our current campaign I've disengaged from loot entirely, is when you have such a small chance of rolling a story motivating piece of loot on a list, like the probability of you walking away with something you actually need to drive the story has been so low that I'm like, what's the point? If it's important, Chad will drop it. And maybe that's me metagaming. I don't know. But I love loot.
Thought.
Yeah.
And too much loot make you sad. No loot make you sad.
Yeah. Take.
We have almost at our table turned loot into a mini game.
Very much.
Because as like the evolution of the table was very much like, okay, you find, and you can find loot tables in the back of the Dungeon Master guides, right? And that's how everybody should start off. Well, I don't know. It's an easy way to start off. Yeah. Talking about crunch, right? But it's a way to help like bolster your imagination when it comes to like what's possible to find in this world, what could be there. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, my recollection is we started the idea of loot tables, like very in-depth loot tables with different kinds of charts. The first one I think was a fumble chart, where we created a chart of like a D100 chart. Gosh, was this 15 years ago?
Or longer than that.
Yeah. Where we had a D100 that if you fumbled, then something crazy would happen. And they got absurd. They really did. But it was a really fun way to like collaborate about the game, then that we all had an impact in the game. But so to me, like, I do love loot, obviously. I think it's a lot of fun, and I like the element of having things outside of your character class that can impact the world in ways that are not expected. Like, it kind of subverts those expectations, which I enjoy in role playing. But it kind of just evolved into this very kind of crunchy part of looting, which is we have so many items, and we have, like 5 or 6 different loot tables, and then we roll each item, and typically we have people go around and roll one at a time, which doesn't work in a storytelling situation like this. So sorry if you listened.
For everyone. Sounds like Zach does not like it.
Yeah.
Well, you guys know me. Whenever we roll loot tables. I'm the one trying to take notes, move it along.
But you take notes purely so that we move faster.
Yeah, and I do it for the good of the group. Like, and I think we've talked about it before, but I think when we're looking at, sorry, you were
No, keep going.
no, but I think it's a good example in our group how we figured it out. Where I'm not the biggest fan of loot. I love magic items and stuff like that, but I think Brandon and John have a lot more interest in rolling and getting it out. And I'm not trying to ruin their fun, but I'm trying to help contribute, being like, well, if I can keep track and move stuff along, then I can do that, right? And I think it's something we've learned to work really well with the group, where Chad establishes the tables that we roll from. They're updated when we find things. There's random stuff that you can find for characterization. Super powerful magic items you can just happenstance on early in the campaign. There's a lot of dynamic fun that can come from that, where we can satisfy that interest to get loot. Because honestly, I think we could all go around the table and name a magic item that we had played with in the past that, like, it was loot and it was central and amazing to the storyline, right? So I think if you're trying to figure out loot, I think you need to figure out how to make it work. Because once you figure out how to make it work for your group in terms of collecting loot, recording loot, generating loot, when I talk about that, but magic items, magic armors, weapons like that, I think that makes super memorable events happen inside the game.
I want to hear Chad's thoughts on loot. But before I do, I want to say I think I understand why I'm more drawn to loot than you are. And it's because you are more crunchy than me. You understand the rules better. And you have a vision of what your character will be.
Absolutely.
And if anyone was in our group was a min-maxer, which I don't know if that's a byword around here. If anyone is a min-maxer, it's you. Like,
absolutely.
You push your characters to its limits of, like, as your paladin, you're doing shit that I'm like, I didn't even think that was possible. Like, and me, I'm like, I just need a good weapon so I can do some more damage, please. Right? I rely on my weapons to be competent, I suppose, because I'm
That's a good call
maybe the weakest role player in our group, but like when it comes to understanding the rules.
No way.
But so I think there's appeal there.
If that's what you think.
No, I agree with you, John, but I agree. Like, min-maxing in the way of, like, I like creating weird, unique builds, and I'm already thinking about how that plays into it and doing stuff like that. So I agree. Loot plays into how you want to approach your character.
It sounds like really what, like, supporting our love of loot. You're kind of like the loot fluffer. That would be how you.
Yeah, I get it up so I can get it out to people.
Yeah, that makes sense. I want to add something else to this because you talked about, like, these memorable magic items. And sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Chad, before you get started. I'm going to let Chad talk, but first, one of my favorite reasons to have loot, or like, it's like mundane objects, was I had a character that was a swashbuckler, and his whole shtick was that he had never been a swashbuckler, like, on the high seas, but he joked about it all the time, or he talked about it all the time, and he carried a sea chest with him, and that's where he kept all of his changes of clothes, right? When eventually he hired a tailor to
Satius
the Gracious.
Yeah.
But I use that sea chest as, like, part of, like, my attacks. So, like, somebody was hanging from a rooftop, and I'd, like, drug the sea chest along the edge and, like, hit their hands. And yeah, maybe it was more like role playing, so I got bonuses and stuff like that. But I loved the fact that he had a sea chest that was nothing to do with, like, his character. Like, it didn't benefit him, but it's like that mundane loot that added.
Him.
Oh, I guess
but
it did,
wasn't a rule that you specifically called out. It was your role playing that benefited from.
Right. And I couldn't have done it without loot.
There you go. You could have done that loot. We've talked about it all, Chad. What's your thoughts?
Yeah.
We've talked about your tables. Like, how'd you go into this?
Well, first of all, you're a great role player, John.
Oh, thanks, bud.
You're phenomenal.
You're a great DM.
And
XP?
Yes.
Thank you.
We'll settle that after this. So when does loot and shopping in-game become too much? It is interesting that this question has come up right now when I think that we are struggling as a group to reconcile with loot and in the current campaign. And part of that is exactly what you just said, John, which is that the story dynamics, the dynamics of telling a story with the way that we have mini-gamed loot in our history doesn't really work anymore. I love the mini game of loot. There's a couple of reasons I love it. One is I love the randomness of it, the chaotic, nature. And the way I've organized all of those lists is the closer you get to rolling 100, the better the items. So even on the rotten item list, you could roll 100 and get a pretty sick item, and get some cool.
Or you get a boot, which
or you can get
an
a
old boot.
but then in the heel, there's platinum, or you know what I mean? Anyway, I just think it's fun to have those lists. So as a part of a mini game, it made searching fun for me as a DM. It was a problem I was solving for myself because I used to hate searching for loot. Because
that's just because we'd be like, what do we find? And you're like, I don't know.
I would have to come up with on the spot, like, okay, what would be in this desk drawer, upstairs in an inn in the middle of this city? Like, okay, you find some quills,
A Bible.
And there's two parts to that. One, I hated being put on the spot and not having anything good to say. But number two, it felt bad to disappoint the group by not having interesting loot, right? Having the mini game come in where I could say like, oh, well, in this drawer, in this inn, it's probably going to be a common item, not anything very rare, or, I can roll on the list. Instead of me having to know what's in a specific space, I just have to know the rarity of an item, because my list it goes rotten, common, rare, very rare, magical is how I've organized.
So
things.
how does that play out in game?
So in game, I would just say like, oh, if you're in a dungeon and you're in the heart of the dungeon and you're at the most rare room, I'd be like, oh, there's probably a magical item here or a very rare item. But if you're just in an inn or at an equipment shop, it would be like, oh, there's probably common items. There might even be some like rotten items here, or maybe some rare, but not very rare. And so then it makes it easy for me to be like, okay, well, there's probably 4 items. Roll 1d4, up to 4. And then we roll 1d4, and then I have you roll D100, however many outcomes you had, and that's the items that you find. It's really cool because the other part is it helped me to not feel like a bad guy, too, when you didn't get something good, when you got an old boot, when you got an owl skeleton, when you got like, a cat that's been taxidermied. It's like
an apple core.
An apple core.
Yep.
I don't feel bad because I'm like, you're the one who rolled it. That sucks.
You
know what I
idiot.
mean? You
But
rolled
better
it.
dice.
then you put stuff in, but you put stuff in the rotten item list.
Yeah.
Randomly, that would be powerful.
Yeah,
or
things
useful.
that could be good, and it made it fun for me to have an economy that was a mini game. I think that there's another element that made it nice, is that when it came into being, this magic item list that I started to use, it was during a time when I was very busy in my personal life. I was a new dad. I had kids that I was taking care of. I was working a full-time job. I was doing school part-time. I didn't have a lot of time. And so this is confession moment, real Dungeon Master confession. I know that searching is going to take up almost a whole session. I don't need to have a plan if we're just doing searching. So like searching and shopping sometimes would just bail me out. It would be like, oh, you guys find a whole shiz ton of items. Let's roll them up, because I don't have a plan. I didn't know what to do that night. You know what I mean? Or to play.
You son of a
And
gun.
so it would still feel like fun in a way, because you're like, oh, we're getting new items, we're getting new gear and getting kitted up.
Feels like Christmas morning.
Yeah,
honestly,
it feels like
sometimes.
Christmas morning. And it also saves me from, oh crap, I needed more time to plan and I'm not really ready, right? And so it's a way to like stave off, I need another week or two before we can play a session that's really role play heavy or whatever.
Yeah.
So I used it also as like a tool to protect myself, right? So coming back to the main question is, when is shopping and loot, in a campaign too much? It's so subjective. It's going to be very much up to the group. I would say for our current campaign and the way we're playing right now for an audience, shopping and loot, the way we've been doing it with a mini game, is just too much. We've decided it doesn't work. In fact, I have already in my plans for sessions we're going to play tonight, I used the same tables to roll up what you'll find.
Yeah.
So like I just went ahead and rolled it all and put them all in a list so that I can be like, hey guys, when you search that area, here it is.
Apple core.
So that you can.
I reject that
idea.
idea.
And it will have it'll have all the rotten items on it. It'll have all the rare, all the very rare, all the common. It has all of them on there.
But now it's not our fault.
But
for
now
rolling
it's
bad.
it's not your fault technically. But anyway, it's just the idea is it's still the same lists. They're still the same upside, and it won't take an hour and a half, 2 hours of everyone just going around and rolling and going through the thing to find it.
Yeah. Thanks. I think
feel lied to this
you
whole
feel lied
time.
to. I don't know. I just to add echo to what Chad's saying. We're getting close on time, but I think one thing with the benefit that we've done with this loot list and this loot chasing is I remember when we played Blood Commerce in that campaign, and then Taste of Yearning, those campaigns we played a while ago, is my archer, Gish, this elven archer, was chasing an item set. And it was 4 pieces. I was looking for the hat, and I'd been looking for it for 2 campaigns to round it out.
Wasn't Deadweight Derek, was it?
No, it wasn't Deadweight Derek. That's another one. Do you remember the name of it?
Bender-Eever.
The Bender-Eever. So it was a Bender-Eever set. And so part of Gish's motivation was to search.
That was the most you've ever searched in any campaign.
I was searching because like I had some of these items. It was gloves, it was a cloak, and I was looking for the hat.
Yeah.
And if I got the hat, then it would like give me big benefits. And it was fun because then tying back to the mini game, I know I had to roll a certain percentage. I didn't know what it was, and I eventually found it. And so it is. That's why I go back to that point. That I say if you can figure out loot with your campaign and your group, you're gonna have a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's like item casino.
Yeah,
because I remember even situations where like you would roll good enough on one list that it pushes you to the next list, so you roll again. Do you know what I'm talking about?
You Chuck E. Cheese us?
Yeah, so it's like casino. It's rat casino. You roll good enough on one list, it pushes you to the next list. You roll good enough on that list, you can push to the next list. So there's conceivably, if you had the best luck ever, you could go from a rotten item find all the way up to magic item. You can go all the way, right? Which is crazy. And you could walk away with like an item that's kind of
and yet the house always wins.
Campaign bending, you know.
I mean,
and we're all in the same house. We built this house together.
And I think that happens in The Hobbit, right? When
Good point.
when they go and they find, or the trolls, spoiler to anybody who
no, you don't
would
have to
weirdly be
you
listening
are
to
unallowed
this.
to walk away. You have to listen to the spoiler if you haven't read it.
Yeah, if you're
right
watching
now.
this, then there's no way you haven't.
Yeah, that's true.
But when Bilbo and the trolls, right, and they get turned to stone.
Yeah,
spoiler. Then they find their loot nest, and they find like Glamdring and Sting, like these hella incredible like magic items from the Second Age.
Yeah, it's so true.
And they are just in a shithole, literally in a shithole. So that there is that funness. And I'm glad that you have experienced the joy of looting. I'm sorry that you don't generally enjoy it as much all the time like that.
I like it. It's just maybe it's the fact that when we played with our super big groups and everybody all loves looting, and I feel like the odd man out, that I'm not as enthused, but everybody else is. Sure. Like when we all play with our big mega groups with our wives, where there's 9 people, 10 people at the table, or 8 people at the table.
I have 2 wives.
Mormon.
We all have multiple wives, but I don't even know what I'm saying now.
Now you're just thinking about your hot wife.
I'm just picturing
what I took out of this.
False prophet, trust me, and playing with his 19 wives or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. What I took out of this, Zach, is that it's actually just in your nature of being a contrarian that you don't like searching. So if we told you,
we all hated it, you would love it.
Yeah. So if we said, Zach, you're gonna love this, then you would hate it.
Well, coming back to this though, there is an element of ownership that the dungeon master has to own when you create a mini game like this, which is there's no items on the list I'm afraid to enter the game at any point. Which is like you have to be really intimate with the list. You've got to know what's on there, and you have to feel comfortable with it being in the game.
Do you remember when you had us roll the chance to get that crown that controlled dragons?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
It was literally one of the most powerful items you've ever done.
And I stole like a ring of resurrection from that list as well.
Yep. So it was insane.
Well, this is great conversation about loot. I think there's a lot of interesting things. Very insightful, John, what you said about me thinking about, does this fit into the character build I want to make? I think that's kind of goes to it.
I let items shape me, baby.
Yeah, there you go, Johnny. You're the clay.
Vessel. He's a canvas.
I'm a hardened box. The last topic I want to talk about is related to our campaign that we're playing right now, A Wizard's Folly. Just around like boss battles and characters changing. I think going back and taking a quick look at the battle with the Alpha Manticore, that felt like a kind of a crescendo of what's been happening. We entered the region to get to the Manticore. So I just have a couple of questions we can just rapid fire get through. What I would ask you, Chad, is how did you feel about that interaction in terms of it being kind of this central combat piece that we've been working towards and was such a big focus? Like, how did you feel about that?
Yeah. I think that the way that it all ended up was correct. I think it was, and what I mean by correct is like, it hit the right story beats, and it made that moment where you meet Marcus and learn of Cedric's alliance to the Foxtails and Landon has the aha moment. I think it just made all of that much more interesting than a quiet campfire encounter.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the idea, is like, how do you, for me as a dungeon master, it was how do I advance the story in a way that's satisfying, but at the same time allow two set pieces or two plots to bang against each other at the same time. It kind of becomes a nexus of story where you have this side thing happening between the brothers, Thornhaven, and the power play dynamics for the kingdom. And you have this menace in the kingdom, which is the Manticore. And the Manticore is the reason you guys are even here,
right?
And then you have coming into that same, aftermath, you have Hob, Half-Man, who's revealing that he's been, his little whoopsie is what created the Manticore, which is what killed the prior, which is what brought you from, Sanctum. So like, I think that it's a really important moment, but it also felt like it wasn't an ending.
I did not feel satisfied with the combat. And in the moment, I felt a little bit like, dang it, like, why couldn't we have killed them?
Sure.
But as we're now a couple episodes back, I've been going back and thinking about a lot, but it really was, like you said, learning about Hob, learning about Marcus, getting our first encounter with the Manticore. So when we eventually track it down and the next time we're going to interact with it, we now have a lot more knowledge going into it.
Sure.
Do we try to kill it? Do we try to reverse the curse? We now have Marcus on our side. We're kind of like coalesced a lot of these big moments into this central combat. So,
yep, that's at least my opinion of it. Cool. I think that I would love to know what other guys think of that too. That's my thoughts.
I kind of gave my thought on it. I do have a couple of questions for Mac and LS specifically as your characters.
Sure.
Before I get into that, do you guys have any general thoughts about that Manticore fight?
I felt targeted. It was rough. Like, I don't know that it did damage to either of you.
It killed me.
It killed Brandon. It did a bunch.
I mean,
too.
You killed me, but
I think for you got batted around and you chased it down, and like you definitely
I got like pounced and yeah. I remember leaving the battle frustrated.
Yeah.
But anxious to do a final showdown.
Yeah. I think going on what you said, Mac, I think even though the Manticore, you didn't like that combat was a little bit back and forth with us, I think that Mac is actually out of me or out of Flavius or LS, Mac's kind of like the battle master when it comes to combat.
The battle Maxster.
The battle Maxster. Because like, honestly, your spells can control the field. Like you can heal, you can do damage. Like you have a lot of area control. Is that something you intentionally did, or is it something that kind of emerged out of, this is working well for me when we fought the Griffins and you controlled that. The wolves couldn't get to us. Like, how did that evolve for Mac?
Yeah, it was a learning experience. So this is my first time playing a druid.
Mm-hmm.
And I typically favor martial classes because rules suck. And it's just easy to swing big sword, right? But the first battle, if we look back all the way back to the Death Knight, it was rough for me.
Yeah.
And so after that battle, I remember like feeling like, I don't want to play this character. I don't care if this character dies. And it was like, no, like I as a player need to learn how to play a druid. And so I did some away from the table research of like, what is the best way to like lean into a druid? And I had learned that there is like, you can go full wild shaping and you can be this battle master that's martial power on the battlefield. You can shapeshift into a bear, whatever, like, and you can start wrecking stuff. Or you can really lean into your spell casting.
Yeah.
And I've not ever really done that, but I was looking ahead at like, what are some future spells I could have and how might that impact the story? And how does that tie with my character motivation and backstory? And working with Chad on that, it was like, no, spell casting should be kind of key.
Yeah.
With kind of like where I've come from. And we'll get more into the story as the campaign progresses. But I was like, I want to lean into spell casting. And part of that was rather than going for the fireball lightning bolts, which aren't spells that I technically have, that I have similar spells. I wanted control spells, battlefield control. You are up front as the paladin, taking hits, dealing massive damage. He's sneaky. He's going to be wizardy at some level. I don't know. He's a little baby multi-class, but I was like, I can do things. I can entangle. I can control battlefield. I can take out smaller targets or contain a major target. And so that was a conscious decision to really adapt and change how I was approaching battle. And it started with that Griffin battle.
That's cool, man. Because that's one thing I called out is like when I normally play, I like play my characters in terms of like how can I help shape the battle, and seeing how the battle Maxster has now been such a huge impact. It's allowed Flavius now just to go full in of like, I want to attack one thing, starting with that Death Knight at the Castle Corbeau, going in one thing, trying to take down the biggest thing, and then letting Mac kind of control the field. So that's cool to see how it's evolved with your character.
Instead of running away from the boomers and getting oogie boogied, I'm now trying to control stuff. It's good.
And I think for you, Brandon, I think out of all that combat with the LS, out of all that combat, had the biggest effect. That Manticore battle had the biggest effect of LS. So like with you becoming undead, in the moment, what were you thinking about? Like your character had like straight up just died. You like walk me through like, how do you handle this idea of like, oh crap, I just died during probably the biggest battle of the campaign. Like what was your thought process on that?
I think to reach nirvana, you have to remove all connection from physical things. And for me, I don't have that. Like I love LS as a character, and I've had a lot of fun playing him. But if he were to die in the next session, I would just roll a new character. Like I don't have that attachment of like, I need to get this character to level 20. I think of it more as a story that people come and go, right? Just like in our lives, if you die, then you die, and that sucks. But I was surprised that I turned undead, but thinking back on it, it worked out really well. And I mean, it helped protect me from maybe some other curses that I was currently complicated with. So I was surprised, but I tried to lean into it and just accept some of the pieces of it. So I changed my voice and tried to make it more just roll with the punches, right? That was the dice roll. And it was honestly because I did something stupid, right? I went up and I forgot that my hit points were low and like just went into like, there's no way he can do this much damage to me. And he couldn't, but then John killed me. So, which honestly was amazing. And I would never have it any other way. That was probably one of the best things. Yeah.
Going back and watching that is so good.
The Battle Maxster. It was perfect. It was role playing at its finest, right? Where you like, I knew that it would hurt me.
Yep.
Right. But I didn't as a character or as a player, but I didn't say anything because it would be amazing. Like it ended up being really fun and like a very memorable part of the story. And to me, that was worth it. Even if he would have died and been gone, we would have always had that moment together of like, remember when the Battle Maxster, which I'm probably just going to always call you that now, killed LS by trying to heal him. Like that to me is a memory that's going to extend beyond this campaign as part of like our cupboard of core D&D memories, right? That we'll always, when we get together and when we're 150 years old, we'll get together and talk about those kinds of things. And that will be one of the stories that comes up. That will be one of the pieces that is part of our friendship and our storytelling together. So
yeah, I loved it. It was great. I wanted to call out specifically because you played that very fast. A lot of people, I wondered if they are new to the game, how would they handle that? You know, I need to think about what to do. I need to talk with the DM. But it was an interesting moment because I wanted to come back to it because I think it's a great example. If you're playing, go back and listen to that episode. I think episode 27 or 20. Yeah. Episode 20, part 2, Venom and Lightning. Go back and listen to that episode, specifically when LS dies, how Mac handles it. And it's a good example of how do you roll with the punches as a group. So I think as we wrap this up, I think it's a good example of like, how do you play with major changes to your characters in combat or in handling curses or anything like that? I think the last thing I'd love to do is just settle on you, Chad, as we've played so many campaigns and as we hear about all this talk on TTRPG kind of hobby or Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, whatever it may be, there seems to be this general consensus that to wrap up a campaign, there has to be this big set piece battle. And I took a step back and I was like, kind of some of the most impactful moments in a lot of our campaigns are wrapped around a battle. Is that something you feel is intentional? Do you feel like it's like you have to do it? Because I was kind of flip-flopping, and then as I was thinking about all the campaigns we've played and all these super memorable moments, I was like, wow, a lot of the memorable moments came from super impactful combats.
Yeah. Well, I think that the reason why impactful combats are usually the crescendo or like the final moment of a campaign is because it's a combat game.
Mhm.
That really is like Dungeons and Dragons is a vehicle for that. And it's where the economy of the game works because all of a sudden hit points come into play. All of a sudden, you're gaining experience points because you're killing things. And it's like the baseline economy of everything, your items that you're using, it all seems to revolve around combat, not necessarily around the role play aspects. And so I would argue that it is not actually necessary. It's not necessary, but if you're playing a combat-based game like Pathfinder or D&D, I think that it feels weird to not have it be.
Yeah.
That would be what I would say. Because I also think about other systems, and I think about the fact that like you could have a conversation with somebody that feels like a combat or feels like a climax moment. I think that could very, very well be the case. I don't think we've ever really explored that, or as much.
I'll jump in here. I think that was one of the rubs I had with Mothership. Was that because combat in Mothership is not used so freely, and they are dire circumstances when you're in combat in Mothership. You're not meant to survive. You're not meant to grow and level up and get your character at epic levels like that. That's an entirely different system. So
yeah,
I totally agree with you. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah. Well, and to me, combat. Let me phrase this so that it's in like a. How do you make sure that the combat you have in a campaign is impactful? I think that's probably the more appropriate question. And I think that if you look at the way our campaign is unfolded, there's no throwaway combats.
Correct.
With the way we play. And that's not to say our way is just the right way, but with us being so story driven, combats usually mean something. They're not meaningless. There's stakes always involved. It always is pushing the plot forward or backward. There's always something happening that's connected. And there's not just a lot of piecemeal combats that are, just because. And so for me, when I look at a combat in this scenario, it would feel weird for me to be like, okay, you guys just get attacked by some owlbears that are going through,
right?
Because I immediately start to ask, well, where did the owlbears come from? And why are they here? And did they impact the village? And does Marcus know about them? And you know what I mean? Like it starts to like send off in my mind, how does this actually connect into the world so that it feels like a story that's cohesive? And so I really am against the idea of like a random encounter list in a setting in a story like we play. And that's not to say they never will work, but I'm just saying that maybe is what's coming up for me with this idea of, does a combat have to be the final showdown of a campaign? It would feel wrong for it to not be with the way that we play.
Yeah. I would just add it's Dungeons and Dragons, not coffee and conversations.
Good point.
That's a good point.
You sassy.
No, I
Sassafras.
think it's a good point, and I think it's a good like kind of wrapped up point is that if combat's not working for you and you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, I think you need to have a conversation if you're playing the right system.
Yeah, for sure.
Or if your combat's not working out.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't tell you how to play, just understanding that there's other games to play. If you don't want like a traditional sword and board sorcery type of game, there's other stuff out there. So before we wrap, is there any other closing comments regarding crunch, loot, or impactful combat?
So many heavy topics. Could talk on them forever.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I just think that like it's the whole point of a TTRPG game is to play it your way, right?
Yep.
So if
the
it
Burger
works,
King of the hobbies.
it is a Burger King of the hobbies.
Yep.
And so if it works for your table to end a campaign in a huge heated conversation, that's super high stakes, and that's awesome. And I actually would love to hear about it.
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
to see
good
how
point.
people are making that work, and maybe we can use that and implement some things into our play style. But yeah, this is a hobby. It's fun, and there's no wrong way to eat a Reese's, and there's
Or a Crunch Bar.
or a Crunch Bar. Yeah, actually, there probably is a wrong way to eat a Crunch Bar. If you put it in milk and let it get wet.
Soggy rice.
Yeah. Okay. See, the wrong way.
I'd still eat it.
But
It turns into like a pudding.
yeah, we could cut that too. But no, there's no wrong way. Like if you guys are having fun, even if you're not using the rules, we didn't use the right rules for years.
Oh no.
And that's okay.
I still don't.
Yeah.
It was probably not until
It's-
3.5 that we actually got close to
and
using
it's
them.
okay because like it doesn't matter if all of your characters have an 1800 strength, right? It doesn't matter.
That's how I rolled it.
And bars lift gates.
Yeah, it doesn't
If
matter.
you know that
It's-
reference, please comment.
Yeah, the most important thing is that you're having fun,
Yeah.
and hopefully you're having fun with people that you like, and yeah, make it your own. Just
Yeah.
play.
I just realized that with you being like our rules lawyer, you could also be called Captain Crunch.
Yeah.
Because you like
Oh,
the
shit.
crunch.
Captain Crunch.
Captain Crunch.
That
Admiral
makes
Crunch.
you like a soggy oatmeal.
There we go.
Well,
Well-
flaccid celery.
Lucky Charm.
From our table with the Battle Maxster and Captain Crunch, thank you for sitting in on our latest Heroic Roundtable. So whether you're a Crunch lover or a loot goblin, remember that the best game of TTRPGs that you can play is the one where everyone wants to come back next session. Be sure to check out our main quest episodes and follow us on socials, where we always try to live heroic and die historic.